settling my chair in. I thought we'd do a bit more on the crazy patchwork. I couldn't remember what it was called there. Now I have gone ahead and finished putting the pieces on. I don't have much space here, I'm sorry guys. I've been concentrating on trying to clear stuff out of my house, and in doing so I've made a ridiculous mess. So as usual, I thought I was prepared. Hopefully this will help a bit. Trying to get it so I can see the screen as well. So I've gone ahead and finished piecing all the bits on, and I apologise if you wanted to actually see me do all that. I got to the point where I thought, I don't think you want to watch me just stitch every bloody piece on and press it. So I've gone ahead and put them on. If you remember, we started with this piece here, and then the next piece we put on was this blue piece, and this one, this one, this one, this one, then we've gone with this one, and then this piece here that you can't see in the shot, this piece here, if you have a look. I did speak about doing this, and I was going to show it, and I do apologise. I've just got that many things I'm trying to get done. I just wanted to get it out of the way. So I've actually stitched that piece onto that piece onto that piece. So I've just done a strip, pretty much, where I've just stitched them together in a strip, and then I've used that as one piece to stitch onto here. Then this piece has gone on, that's the same. I've done a strip where I've joined some pieces, and then I think I did this pink bit next. I didn't want big chunks, so these bits ended up a bit bigger than I was hoping, even this bit, but that's okay because we're going to decorate them. Now, another thing that I'm mindful of, I want to turn mine into a zippered pouch. So you'll see here I've drawn a line here. I did that with a pencil, I think, last week. I need to take a step back. After I stitched all these pieces on, and again, all I've done, if you remember, is laid them down. Now for me, I like to draw a line with my marker, my erasable marker, and follow that stitch line to try and keep some sort of order, straightness to my stitching, and then turn it over, finger press it, and then I've taken it up and pressed it with the iron. Okay, once I've done all my pieces together, and like I said, started with this bit, and I offset my beginning piece because I want to do it as a zippered pouch. So I wanted to make that a little bit of a feature. I didn't want it sitting on the bottom of the pouch. So once I stitched all my pieces on, folded them back, pressed them, I've trimmed it. So I've just trimmed it to fit the size of that original piece we cut to work on. Okay, so just tidied it up a bit. Now normally I would say I should do it. I shouldn't keep cutting shortcuts, should I? I'm going to pull just a bit of sewing thread. Now this is Resembling. It doesn't matter what you use. I'm not a big lover of polyester, like cheap polyester, you know, the stuff you used to get from Big W or back in the day. I'm not a lover of those just because I struggle to manipulate them the way I want. I find they get knotty and twisty, and so I like to use cotton. This is just a Resembling quilting thread for no other reason than it was sitting here in front of me in a bowl, and add some thread. So I've just threaded my needle with some of that thread, and as usual I've cut it too long, so I've already got a knot where I didn't want a knot. Now all I'm going to do here now is do a, now you might want to, these edges, they will move around a bit, so you might want to just pin them to make sure they don't shift while you're doing this. It's just mainly these bigger sections, I suppose. So all I'm really going to do here now is take my needle with my threaded needle with the result in it, and I just want to do a bit of a, and I think I've picked up a bloody tapestry needle. I've just pulled the first one out of the pin cushion and I didn't check it, so I've picked up a tapestry needle, so I'm going to change needles because that will not. That's the one I just had. Okay. Now I know I keep saying I'm going to be more organised, and one day I will, but I'm starting to think at this rate it may not be until after I move, because I'm in such a flap over trying to get all this stuff sorted and out of this house and things organised, and I mean there's just so much stuff here. I haven't moved in nearly 30 years, so I'm finding it all a bit overwhelming, and I'm doing it all on my own this time. Well, I'm packing up on my own. So I'm just doing a running stitch around the edge here, nothing fancy. I'm just basting these edges down so they don't move around and lift up and do things we don't want them to do. Now, this that I'm going to make, this that I'm demonstrating, it's going to be very basic compared to what I would normally do, because as I mentioned, I've got too many other projects on the go that I want to give my focus and attention to, and I've got too many other tasks that need doing. So I don't really have the time to spend on this that I would normally, but I've been getting so many requests for tutorials. I don't know why I thought this would be an easy one. So for some reason this seemed like a good idea at the time when I started it. Now make sure you're not pulling it too tight, which I am. I can see I'm pulling it a bit tight. See, it's just puckering a little bit. Just make sure you're not pulling it too tight. You want it to remain nice and flat. Pull the pins out as we go. And again, this is just a basting stitch, just to hold it all together. Make sure we don't have anything lifting off as we're working it. Now I would actually normally do probably a blanket stitch around this, just to really make sure these bits don't lift up. I suppose if you have a sewing machine you could do a zigzag stitch around it, but I'm trying really hard to not use a machine, and the main reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to show that you don't need a machine, you don't need to own a machine to do these projects. And I'm also trying to focus on the sew stitching movement, I suppose. And for me, using a machine is not slow stitching. That's my opinion anyway. That's for me. That's my personal. I don't believe using an electric sewing machine at this point in time for me is slow stitching. But it might be for you, and that's okay. So you've probably noticed I'm set up inside again today. That's because it's bitterly cold outside. The sun's not out. If the sun's out in this cold weather, at least when the sun's on your back, it's bearable. But it's overcast, it's rainy, it's windy, it's bitterly cold. And I'm just not coping with the cold weather, so I've moved back inside again today. The main reason I sit outside to do these is because the light is a lot better and you get a much clearer picture of what I'm doing than when I'm inside. And I've also been trying to be mindful of speaking into the speaker. I need to get another, I did have one. I did have a speaker near where I speak, but it's stopped where, actually it's not stopped working, it doesn't fit this phone I have at the moment. This temporary phone. So I just noticed when I've gone back through my videos the last couple of days that it's not exactly easy to hear me, and I apologise for that. I've not quite got enough thread to finish this off. I'm just cutting a bit more, and we'll continue on our merry way. I'll tell you what, all I've done today is stitch down these pieces that I finished off earlier, and I've already got holes in my finger from the back of the needle from pushing it through, so that's a bit frustrating. It gets a bit painful. I probably should wear a thimble, yes, but none of the thimbles I have actually fit me, and I do like to feel what I'm doing. I find wearing a thimble, I can't actually feel what I'm doing. And that might sound a bit silly, but I suppose I'm a bit of a tactile person, and if I can't feel to control the needle, I feel like I don't get a desirable outcome, I suppose. So we're nearly finished, and again I've just basted these edges so they don't shift while we're working. I haven't given measurements for this piece of fabric because it doesn't really matter. This is just a piece I had, and I thought it seems a good size to turn into a little zippered pouch. That would be good for me at the moment. I suppose you could do it as a needle book cover. I mean, I've done these previously. I did one, I don't know where that ended up. Great big round one that I turned into a bag that we used to card all our, it was originally made to card all our sewing and quilting supplies in, and then it turned into a toy bag for my children, and it was all crazy patchwork. It was all quilted and it was all decorated, and I don't know whatever happened to it. I haven't seen it for years. It might emerge when I'm continue cleaning out my stash. Who knows? What else was I going to say? So yeah, I guess you could a bit long and narrow, but you couldn't turn it into a needlebook. You can do whatever you want with them. I just think I'm going to turn this one into a zippered pouch. Let's have a quick look. My rules are back to front. So if I have a quick look, and again I didn't measure it, so goodness knows what this would be. 11.5 inches by 9 inches. So if I was to cut it, I'd probably go 12 by 9 because they're nice symmetrical numbers for me. But as I said, it was just a bit that I had cut, an off-cut bit. I'm just now folding it in half with right sides facing out, making sure that it's even, and I'm just going to mark the halfway mark. Sorry, I need to bring it around where I can actually see it. Make sure that wasn't lined up then. And again, mark the fold. I'm just marking it with my pen. And then I'm going to draw a line on it with an erasable pen, heat soluble, whatever you want to call it. This isn't necessary. I'm doing this for my own benefit. Now, the reason I've done this, oh God, I keep my legs stuck, sorry. Because I want to turn this into a zippered pouch, and I don't want to cut two halves and have a seam down the middle, I've drawn the line, and don't forget, I've just used a heat soluble marker, a friction marker. So if I iron this, that will disappear. So be mindful of that while you're still working. Now the reason I've done that is because now I want to come along and do some decoration. And if I want to do something, for example, like a spider's web in this corner, I want to make sure it's facing upright when I put the purse together. So look at that, I've missed a bit. Can you see that? I didn't cover that piece of fabric when I've pieced all that together. I didn't move it down far enough. So I'll need to be mindful of that as well to ensure that I stitch something over that and stitch that down. So I'm just going to draw a bit of an arrow there to remind myself that I need to do something with that, put something over it. I could even put a Suffolk puff or something there, but I'll do that so I remember. Now it comes time to decorating, and I haven't dug much out because, as usual, I'm not prepared. There's a lot of things we can do here. We can add some bits of lace. Now I could have also put lace over the top of these foundation pieces and stitch the next piece on top of them so they're tucked underneath, but of course I didn't think about that, did I, until now. So this piece of lace hasn't been pressed, of course. I would press that before attempting to attach it. So for this piece, there's a seam here that runs from here to here. It's out of shot. From here to here, I would attach whatever I'm attaching along that seam to those edges. I'm not sure if I want, it's not bad, I suppose. I don't normally choose these types of laces. I normally do embroidery, but I just don't have the energy to bloody embroider it all. I've got bits of ribbon. Oh, that one might be cute on there. Look at this one. Could stitch a bit of that on there. It's got some bunting on it. That could work. Might put a bit of that on, hey? Can put some ribbon on, some lace, and do stitches along there. What I do want to do is I want to put a spider's web. Now, traditionally, I think it was the Victorians, when they first started doing crazy patchwork, they added 3 elements. One was a spider's web and a spider, and that was to symbolise that the spider's web would catch the good luck and hold it on into the, the piece of work. Another one was their initials, the second one. The third one was a rose. Now, I think I ended up translating that rose into a flower, although I could potentially say that there are roses on the fabric, but you actually, traditionally they were attached. I'm just going through the ribbons I have here. I don't like that one. I like this one, but I've started another project using that ribbon. Some of these are a bit chunky. There's a bit of pink velvet. It's a bit candy pink compared to the rest of it, so that one might not be a goer. Oh, these are a bit cool. These work. More velvet ribbon. More velvet ribbon. Now you can even put ribbon down and then do embroidery or beading over the top of it. What's that one? Nothing there, I don't think. They're not the right colours. I've got some pink rickrack that would work. Could lay some of that on. It doesn't have to be pink, obviously, because I've got blue in here, I've got grey, I've got... What else is in here? There is a brown rickrack which I think would work with that as well. I've got a brown and pink argyle here, but again I've got that for another project. I think it's too candy pink anyway for my liking. That piece would work. I saw something else and now I can't find it. You could add, this is the wrong colour, this is a flower I made years ago. You could add flowers to it, Suffolk puffs. Maybe I should make some more of those. This is what I was after. I've got more of this somewhere. Some of this, I don't think I like the colour though on it. So there we go, there's just a few bits of ribbon I have that might work. You can add lace, you can add embroidery stitches, but like I said, I want to do a spider's web. Now, I think I want to add a piece of this ribbon to this top piece here. Now the reason I'm coming back to this is because I think I'll add the spider's web under here, or under here, maybe under here. I thought on the pink because it would be more visible, but by the time I stick the seam in here we might lose. Oh, I think I could still fit it in. So let's cut this to size. I'm cutting it a bit wider because I want to tuck that edge over under. They're not the best fabric cutting scissors, of course. So I want to fold this so it's in line with that seam, which is almost at that angle. Don't want to go too high because I'm going to have another seam up here. I mean, you can sit it right under that seam that we've made. I'm just thinking how much room I need over here to fit that spider in. Okay, let's pin this in here. And then, I haven't done that very. Not quite the right angle. How can I work that out? Okay, there's a rough. Manipulate it with the needle, I suppose. There we go. That's better. Now all I've got to do is try and hold it there. That's with the needle, so I'll have to take that out anyway. Pin this down right on that seam. Okay, you might have an easier way of doing this, and I often do things like this and then I get halfway through or get to the end of it and think, oh shit, I could have done that an easier way than that. Now, I've got this thread I was using earlier, this resembling, is actually green, so I don't want to use that to stitch this on. It's this colour. So, I probably don't have any on hand. It's the correct colour. Of course not. What about in here? White. White might stick out a little bit. A cream or an off-white would be better. Let me have a quick look beside me. Could possibly use this, I suppose. That's a crochet thread. It's probably the correct colour. Might use that, hey, for now. It's not too thick, so it would work. Oops. Got so much stuff gathered around me at the moment. Okay, let's get some of this off. Got a mess here already, haven't I? A bit of a messy little, oh silly me, pinned that in there to hold it where I wanted to stitch it, and then I just pulled it out absent-mindedly. Now, odds are I won't be able to thread this needle because it's not the correct needle for the job. Ah, there we go, I got it. Right, now I'm just going to do nothing because it's in the wrong spot. I'm just going to do a quilter's knot because why not? Quilter's knot. Maybe not. I can't get it to come through now. Okay, quilter's knot, and this is where it's going to be a bit tricky because I want to stitch that down there, but I don't want to just cut this off because it will come unravelled. So how am I going to finish that off? So it's neat and tidy. Well, that might work. Okay, I'm going to come up from the back and I'm just going to start stitching this ribbon down. Now I manipulated where I wanted that fold to go using my needle, and I'm just sort of catching, this is a twill tape, I'm just sort of catching the edge of that ribbon, that tape, because I don't really want those stitches to be seen. Now if you remember earlier where I discovered the hole where I'd mis-stitched, I didn't move my fabric down far enough before I stitched the next layer on. I marked that because I wanted to ensure that at some stage I went over that with something, a Suffolk puff or a bit of lace or something, to cover that hole. Now, it just so turns out that the first thing I've put down, there's those arrows. The first thing that I've put down is going to cover that hole. That was a bit of a fluke, to be honest. Now again, I'm just working my way along this ribbon. I've started here at this fold because if I work my way back along and then try and stitch this edge down, there's a chance that it would buckle, and we don't want that. Now, I'm trying to be mindful to stitch this ribbon right on that seam. See that seam that we had, where that fold was, where those fabrics joined. So I'll just keep stitching this down. What I'm thinking is, I'm not sure, because this is a wide piece of tape, well, relatively wide in comparison to the size of the work we're doing, I'm wondering if it's worth me, once I stitch down this edge, should I be coming back with a pink thread and tacking along this bunting to hold it down a bit more, because if I come and do this edge next, is it going to want to pucker up like this? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. I guess I could baste it before I stitch the other side. And I probably should have basted this down too before I started. I'm cutting corners again. Now the way my process works, if you haven't already worked out, I don't often plan what I'm doing. I just sit down and it organically starts to come together. Sometimes I will get part way along and think, oh, I could have done that a better way, and I might undo it and redo it, or I might just change the way I do it halfway through. I do like the idea of planning, and sometimes I do plan, but the way I guess my brain works, no matter how much I try and plan these things out, they don't always work the way I want the finished product to be, if that makes sense. And I do, sorry, I'm just going to have a bit of coffee. I do like to take tiny little stitches where I can. These stitches are getting a bit big. But I do often just do. Now, you might wonder why I keep doing this. I'm just trying to make sure it's sitting flat. I'm sort of stretching it out as I go as well, to make sure it's not puckering as I'm stitching. Make sure I'm not stitching it too tightly. Now I might look at this in the daylight and think, oh crap, those stitches are enormous, or that colour stands out like a pimple on a pumpkin. That's the disadvantages of having poor light inside. Sometimes the colours look great under this light, and then I take it outside and I think, crikey Moses, what was I thinking? I'm going a bit quiet because I'm concentrating. I had a bit of a knot there. Now, I am also feeling, I'm sort of, how can I explain it? I'm butting the ribbon up against that seam as I'm stitching. So if you see me doing this, that's me just making sure the ribbon is butted up against that seam. Stretching it out as we go, making sure it's not bunching up. Butting it up against that seam. See, it's worked away a little bit. There's a mil or so in between, a bit of a gap there. So I'm just constantly rolling it to make sure it's butted up against that seam. Take the next pin out. And see it's sticking up a bit over it now. It's over that seam. So again, I'm just rolling it. So this direction, that direction pulls it up it butts it against the seam, and if it goes over the seam, rolling it back in this direction pulls it back down. And just see it moving away a little bit. Pulls it back up, pushes it back down. So if I just sort of do this, it seems to settle where I want it to settle. Ouch, that was the back of my finger. That was the back of the head in my finger, I mean. The eye of the needle went through my finger. Now that's something else I'll need to remember to point out as I'm going. That stitch was a bit big. Stretching it out again. See, I've done a big stitch there. I don't like it. Now normally I'd come back and pull that out, but I don't have time for that. And it's likely that I will come back and do a surface stitch over that anyway. The light's not great from my angle here. Coming up to the end. Got about 1.5 inches to go, I suppose. I'm also, as I'm stitching, I'm also running my needle down the face of the fabric until it falls into that seam. It tends to just fall in there, so I'm getting it exactly where I want it to be. Now, this is what I was talking about earlier. I've got a knot. So don't keep pulling. If you can see that loop there, I'm just going to pinch that and work it out, and then most of the time the knot will come out. Now the reason it's not in, one of the reasons, oh no, it's not too bad. I thought I had a twist. Okay, taken my last pin out, so this is where it's going to be more crucial to make sure I'm butting that ribbon up against the edge, because that tail end is going to move around as I'm continuing this stitching. And again, I've done a much larger stitch there than I wanted to. I couldn't see that until it sat on top there. If I was not going to cover that up later, I would unstitch it all, but since it will most likely be covered up with another surface stitch, I'm not too concerned. It would be much better if I had light my hand's getting in the way of this light from this direction, and I don't have my proper glasses either, so it's making it much more challenging to see what I'm doing. I think that one was probably too far away again. Oh no, not too bad. That one was, look at that. What a good doofus. going to take this stitch in all the way to the end. To the end of the fabric, not the end of the ribbon. Now I want to secure this a bit. It's a bit tricky because it's right near the edge, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a little overhand sort of tacking stitch here, because that should all get taken up in the seam, but I'm also trying to hold the ribbon and that folded seam edge in place because it's okay. So now we want to come back up, and just going to leave this tail here for now. Now I want to come back up here, and that's a little bit puckered, so we'll try and finger press. Now what I'm concerned about is this part of the ribbon here. I want to tuck that all under, make sure it's nice and neatly stitched away in there, and I'm using my needle to manipulate that end and that twill. I want to ensure this point remains, so I've put another knot in the end, and I'm going to come up from the back, and I'm going to just try and stitch down this point a couple of times into that fabric, into that seam. So we've got a nice crisp point. Probably don't need a couple of times. That bit's poking out its head a little bit. And then, for now, I'm just going to stitch down this section where that edge is. And I'm also trying to make sure that ribbon's sitting out nice and flat as I go. I'm being a bit more careful this time because I don't have that seam to butt the ribbon up against. And I'm really struggling to see what I'm doing. That was too far in. So, you know what? I might keep going because it seems to be sitting okay. At the very least, I've tucked that bit up so it's not going to fray and carry on while we keep working. And since that ribbon appears to be sitting nice and flat, I might just keep stitching that edge at least until this bit of thread's run out, because I don't have a bit long enough to do this whole length of ribbon at the moment. I think I'm doing this the most awkward way possible. Oh, I've got my finger. My stitches are getting a little bit further apart now. What you could do, if you were concerned, was baste this down. Maybe I will. felt like it was rolling a bit. And sometimes the pins will make it worse, sometimes they will make it roll even more. Let's see how we go with that. And I'm still, as I'm stitching, I'm still sort of rolling the twill down, the ribbon down, under my thumb. Ooh. The ooh was just because I keep stabbing myself. I don't feel these stitches are very neat, and that bothers me. But I'm going to give myself a bit of a break because, as I said, I can't see very well. Oh, crack, that was my neck. I don't know if you heard that. I did. Now, I can feel that puckering in the back. It's not too bad. I mean, if you felt that, you might want to turn it over. I can tell by feel. Oh, bum. I was looking at the monitor instead of my work. Went in the wrong spot. I can feel this thread is really beginning to fatigue now. And by fatigue I mean it's starting to fray. I can feel a lot more resistance as I'm pulling it through the fabric. And this is one of the main reasons why you don't cut long pieces to work with. But I'm going to be naughty and I'm going to keep going with this bit. There's not a lot left. If you continue with a fatigued thread, you're more susceptible to getting knots, and you can end up with a furry thread, and it's more likely to break. Now I think all of these fabrics, oh no, maybe not. I think they're all vintage. Now when I say vintage, this blue one, the bark cloth, they're like 1950s. This print, this one, this one, this one, this one, and this one, they're all sort of 1995. And then the Tilda, I think it was 90s as well, 2000s. Same with that one, that's about the same age as the Tilda. 2000 and probably 10, 15 years ago, the Tilda. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember when I was working at the quilt store. This thread's getting shorter and shorter. Might actually, because I might have enough to get right to the end, but I think that's a bit of wishful thinking. Oh, it's my finger again. Jesus, that hurts. Now this is where I say it must be incredibly boring for you guys watching me just stitch like this. So I will go away until the next video and possibly lay down some more ribbon. Hopefully if I get to something different I'll come back and show you. Sometimes I get carried away. I don't mean to. I just really want to get to work on some other projects I'm working on. Ouch, that was my finger again. I've worn a hole in my finger from the eye of the needle pushing it through. It's certainly not the first time I've done it, and it won't be the last time either. But gee, it gets tender. Okay, now before I finish this video, I did want to show you the spider's web. If I can remember how to do them, it's been many years. Oh, so close to the edge. I'm playing thread chicken. Oh, come on. I really just need a bit of a securing stitch there now. There we go, that should do the trick. And I made it, look at that. I didn't think I'd get to the end. Look how much I've got left, how much thread I've got left. Right, so that ribbon's on. Oh, I can't feel my toes, guys. I've got this terrible habit of leaning forward when I'm trying to see in this terrible light. Now what I think I will do is, you know, this is going to do my head in, don't you? Because what I'm thinking, I think it's in, we've got that many boxes and tins and jars and whatnot out here at the moment, trying to sort through stuff. I'm just opening a tin with some threads in it, and I do believe I have, yes, I have an old metallic DMC gold thread. Now this stuff does my head in because it's very springy and it doesn't behave the way I want it to, and I end up getting incredibly frustrated with it. But look at that, it's a bloody mess already. Where's that end? What a mess. Two ends happening here. Okay, I want a bit long enough to do a continuous bit of web. Now I don't know if this will work. It's been many years since I've done a spider's web, and it's been probably just as long since I've used this thread, and it's a bugger to use. I'm just pulling out one strand out of the 6. Yeah, like I said, I've got to try and remember how to do this. How to do this spider's web. And this is going to test my patience trying to thread it, because it splits as you're trying to thread the needle. Right, I'm going to put a notch in one end, and I'm going to try and remember how to do a spider's web. So, thinking about how a spider builds its web, I'm going to start. Now, I might have to undo this because, as I said, I can't remember. I'm going to start with a, you know what? Let's see if this will work. I'm going to start with a bit of a spoke. One arm, and then think. I'm just mindful, if I just do spoke out there like that, that's going to be difficult to do that spiral around. The other thing I've just remembered, spiders have holes in the centre of the web, don't they? So let's leave a space. And come down. Now I want to offset it a bit. I don't want it exactly opposite, because that's not how spiders do it. Again, I'm trying to leave a space in the center. Oops, I don't want to pull that too tight. We might put this one over here. I should have had another look at a spider's web. Might bring this a bit lower, I think. And then up into here. And then got a notch in the back. Okay, now because I'm doing such big spokes across the back, that's pulling, so we want to make sure that's going to sit flat. Now I might bring this one over about here. How does that look over there? It's caught around that ribbon. And then one in here, hey? A little bit too symmetric, isn't it? I don't think I like that. I might. Might take that one out for now. It doesn't look right. Thread the needle again, which is going to be challenging because it's split now that I've been using it. Okay. Oops. No. Yep. No. Now. See, that's pulled again. You might want to do this in a frame. And again, I don't know if this will work. I might just as easily unpick this because I hate it. Now I'm coming up beside that. And I'm going to go underneath it. And then underneath the next one next to it. I don't want to pull it too tight. Now I'm going to stitch into the fabric because I want to anchor it. And then I'm going to come up next to that again. And we're going to come under the next one. And then I'm going to come over the top and anchor it. Anchor it. And then I'm going to come up right next to that where we've gone in. And underneath this one, around over the top of it, and then underneath it and anchor it. Again, come up right where where we went in, and I've got a knot. This thread is fatiguing very quickly. Underneath the next one, I'm pulling it towards the center and then putting my needle underneath and anchoring it. And coming back up right next to where we've just gone in. And then the next one, and coming back over the top and anchoring it. Now, spiders sort of work in a spiral motion if you've ever watched them. So we're going to go to the next one that we've already been in, but we're going to move up a bit. And then we're going to come back up right next to where we've gone in. And again, we're going to come up right next to where we've gone in, move to the next one, and like I said, I might get to the end of this and think that looks bloody hopeless and undo it all. It's certainly not the finest spider's web I've ever sand stitched. Now what I'm going to do, instead of jumping to the next one, ouch, there goes my finger again, I'm going to go in here somewhere. Again, I don't know if this is going to work. And I'm going to create another spoke because that's what spiders do. Now I'm going to come back to here and then go back to the next one. I'm still not convinced I like this because these spokes, these big steps down here are much larger than I would like them to be. And come back up next to where we just went in. And once again, I'm going to move over here and create another spoke. Might be a bit high in there, that one. I think I might undo that because I'm not happy with that at all. I need to come up with a better way of doing that. I'm not happy with how that looks. It's not fine enough for my liking. So I think part of the issue is this thread I'm using. It's too thick. Let's just see what happens if I keep I'm not overly impressed with this, guys. I think I might go away and experiment with this and see if I can get a better outcome and a better way to show you, because I'm not impressed with this at all at the moment. Keep going to see if it improves at all. So far I'm not convinced. Yeah, see, look how this side's not too bad, but then it goes all wonky donkey on me. I thought the gold was a good idea. Well, I didn't really, because I knew this thread would be a bugger to work with. And if this is on a pouch, that's going to catch on a lot of stuff. So I definitely need to reconsider how I'm going to do this spider's web. Yeah, I'm not happy with that, guys. I'm going to undo that and redo it, I think. But I will come back. I'm not convinced it will work. Even if I tack these bits down, Yeah, no, I've just lost my thread. It's split and I pushed it too far. Okay, I'm not happy with that outcome, guys, so I will reconsider that, how I'm going to do that spider's web. I thought the nice gold would be it. Through the monitor it looks bloody awful. I thought it'd be a nice shimmer, like a golden orb web or something, but I'm not happy with that at all. So I will unpick that. I'll come back again another time and I will hopefully have come up with a better way to do the spider's web. In the meantime, if you're going to do some of this, I would get some more ribbon down or do some stitches on your seams. I haven't shown you any stitches, but you can go ahead and do some stitches if you like, or add some ribbon, okay? So until next time, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on our next edition of Crazy Patchwork, whatever we're going to call it. Just Crazy Patchwork, okay, for now. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.